Hey guys, what's up? This is my video on the essential gear I used for Fat Dog 120. Let's get right into it. Alright, so for shoes, I started the race the first 66 kilometers in Brooks Pure Grit 2. Not a very grippy bottom, which I prefer. And as you can see here on the eyelet, I started the shoelace at the second eyelet, which I found gave my toes a little bit more room in the shoebox, which I like. So these shoes have a 15 mil stack height at the front, 19 at the back, so that's a 4 mil drop. I find with a 4 mil drop that I'm able to run naturally. I also find that the 4 mil drop saves my Achilles. I think if I were to do the whole race in a 0 drop shoe, then my Achilles would have been quite sore and tender by the end of the race. So I use these for the first 66 kilometers of the race. After that, I switched to Ultra Superior 2.0. And I gotta say, I really like these. Again, I'm used to shoes that have a wider toe box because I did the majority of my training in sandals. And I'm also more used to 0 drop shoes, which is what this shoe is. This shoe has a little bit more stack height than the Pure Grits. It has 21 millimeters, so just a little bit more cushion once my feet got a bit sore in the race. Again, not a super aggressive tread on the bottom, which again I prefer. And these shoes, like the Pure Grits, have a rock plate. And I did the rest of the race in these shoes, which would have been 130 something kilometers in these shoes. Yeah, and they worked really well. Okay, for socks, I started out in the Pure Grits. I did the 66K in the Pure Grits in a pair of Injinjis. And yeah, I would say I prefer the Injinjis because I use them the most in training. I did get a little bit of heat with the Pure Grits in these, but nothing that went too crazy. So I switched to the Ultras after 66K, and I was, like I said, I was noticing a bit of friction on my heels. And so what I did is I put a fresh pair of Injinjis on, because we had just crossed a creek at that point, and I used a pair of WrightSock double layer with Coolmesh. They have like two kind of like layers in them. And with the Ultras being a bit more of a wider shoe, having 2 pairs of socks in that shoe wasn't an issue, and I didn't feel like my feet were too hot. I will say with 2 pairs of socks on, there was less friction between my foot and the shoe, and I found that more comfortable as the race progressed. So as I mentioned, I did have a bit of heat, and I did get a few blisters on my feet, but I use this stuff called Leukotape. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but this stuff is fabulous. Okay, next up is the Salomon S-Lab Advanced Skin 12 set. Wow, that's a long name. This is the vest I used for the race, and I really liked it. So the back of the vest has this big zippered section that can just fit a ton of clothing. There's this big stretchy pouch that can also fit a lot of food. And at the front, there's tons of different areas for you to store food and the gear you need. Yeah, so I found this vest super comfortable. The only thing I would like to change about it, which I did with my mother's help, is we sewed these 2 pockets onto the front of the vest right here. That normally doesn't come with it. You can see it's a different color. And I found with being able to put my soft flask up in here, I was then able to store a bunch of food right in here that was super easily accessible. This is the Fenix HL 60R headlamp that I used for the race. It has 6 modes, I believe. It has a red setting, a 5 lumen, 50 lumen, a 150 lumen, a 400, and then a 950 lumen. On a full charge, 150 lumens will last for 10 hours and 400 will last for 3 hours. So what I did in the race is I would go uphill on 150, downhill on 400. And honestly, having a bright headlamp on the downhills was wonderful. I never felt like I had difficulty seeing. This was the first night run I've ever done, and with a bright headlamp it was no problem. I also wanted to mention that the Fenix headlamp comes with a rechargeable battery, but you can also use 2 lithium. You can also use 2 CR123A batteries. These are sold separately. With going 150 on the uphills, 400 on the downhill, I changed batteries once in the first night, and that was it. My one knock on the headlamp I forgot to mention was that you can't scroll down, you can only scroll up. So if I was on 400 and going downhill, I wanted to drop down to 150, I'd have to go up through 950 and then go through all the other settings until I hit 150 again. It would have been much easier and more convenient if I could have just dropped down and up between 150 and 400. Also, splacks. I use this to prevent chafing. I applied it once at the beginning of the race and that was it, and it was totally fine. I just put a few swipes of this around my nippular area, in between my legs and other areas that I've chafed in the past, and awesome. Okay, so for my water system, I used a Hydrapak 2-liter system, and this thing works really well. It's pretty light. It has a connector here, so it made it really easy to remove from my bag without having to remove this, because this was strapped through the vest. And then this just big open pouch like that made it super easy to fill up on water. I will say is just to oil the end of the hose connector so that it can come out and in smoothly, and same with the top piece so it slides smoothly. But yeah, 2 liters of water was more than enough. I never ran out of water except once, and that was at an aid station that didn't have enough water to fill me up to my max capacity. I also used a Salomon 500 milliliter soft flask as well as an Ultimate Direction soft flask. This one is slightly smaller, I think about 400 mil. Both worked very well. And it was really nice to be able to go into an aid station, fill my 2 liters up, have a couple cups of water so that I left the aid station feeling hydrated. So that's all the gear I'm going to cover in this video. This is the essential gear I use for Fat Dog. I had to carry other stuff. There is other mandatory gear you have to carry for Fat Dog. However, a lot of that stuff I ended up not using. This is just the stuff I mainly used for the race. Post your comments below and post any questions down below, and have a great day, guys. Peace.